Hi, I'm Mark Melchionda, and the poem I'm here to discuss is called Crossing the Bar, and it was written by Alfred Lord Tennyson in 1889. I'm going to recite the poem in its entirety, and then I'll talk about it. Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me, and may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out our bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. The first element of the poem I will mention is its structure. This poem was written in the ABAB rhyme scheme, where the last word in the first and third stanzas rhymes with each other, and the last word in the second and fourth stanzas rhymes with one another, and this happens in all four stanzas. There is some alliteration and assonance slightly spread throughout the poem. A few examples of alliteration are in stanza 1 in line 2, in the words clear and call, and also in stanza 4 in lines 1 and 2 between the words born and bear. Some examples of assonance are in stanzas 2 in the words sound and line 2, and boundless in line 3, and also in stanza 4 in the words time in line 1 and pilot in line 3. Next, I want to talk about what this poem is about and my interpretation of its meaning. The first two lines in the first stanza of the poem stand out to me as a declaration that he's about to embark on a journey at the end of the day, which is signified by the sun setting. The third line in the first stanza speaks how there will be no moaning of the bar, which is a use of personification, saying how the sandbar will grieve his departure. This tells me that his journey out to sea is one that he hopes to take without any sadness being shared between him or those that he's leaving behind. A similarity in this poem exists between stanzas 1 and 3, and how they are identical in many ways, especially in the word meanings, the tone, and this is apparent in all four lines in both stanzas. In the first line, the ending of the day is expressed using the word choices such as sunset, evening star, twilight, evening bell, and even in the second line in the third stanza, stating how they will be departing into the dark. The third line in both of these stanzas is saying how he doesn't want any heartache or sorrow when he leaves. The fourth line in both stanzas talks about how he will depart for the sea and embark on a grand journey. Punctuations in stanza 1 and 3 are also almost identical, along with using specific words such as and, of, no, and I in identical positions. The second stanza speaks of him being drawn out to sea by the full tide. The third line, when that which drew out the boundless deep, almost talks of the tide as if it were coming out to greet him, as it waits patiently for him to depart. The fourth line in the second stanza, turns again home, is stating that he considers the sea to be his home, and that he expects the tide to bring him back to the boundless deep. The fourth stanza in line 2 is stating that the flood, which is referring to the tide, may bear him far. This line also uses personification to describe the tide, almost as if it were a guide bringing him out to sea. In the third and fourth line in stanza 4, I believe that the pilot he is referring to is the tide, that he hopes to bring him out past the bar to where he considers his home to be. That's my interpretation. Lastly, I like this poem a lot for its use of personification and how it views the sandbar as this barrier separating him from his home. I like how it also treats the tide as if it were a character unto itself and a companion to the main character of the poem. My own personal interpretation of the theme of this poem is that of a sailor who has lived his life at sea and is departing one last final trip in which he may not return from. There is also a lot of dark tones and finality to many of the words, and it's almost as if this will be one of the last trips out to sea with a friend that he has known his whole life. This concludes my poetry project and my interpretation of Crossing the Bar for English 2 in Miss Ashmore's class. Thank you.